Earlier this offseason, the Brooklyn Nets traded Keita Beats Diop, the draft rights to Juan Pablo Valette, Mikal Bridges, and a 2026 second-round pick for Bojan Bogdanovic, Mamadi Diakite, Shake Milton, a second-round pick, a top 4 protected 2025 first-round pick, an unprotected pick swap, and not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 fully unprotected first-round picks. In the words of Alvin Gentry, that's a haul, folks. But get this, the Nets wouldn't even be done cooking, making their master plan a reality. Immediately after this trade, the Nets would strike a deal with the Rockets that would get their 2026 first-round pick back and erase Houston having the ability to swap first with them in 2025. I think I speak for all Nets fans when I say that I love it when a plan comes together, because all of this would make for an extraordinary offseason for the Brooklyn Nets, who have been in turmoil since the dysfunctional destruction of their big three. All of this would also make for an extraordinary offseason for the former All-Star himself, Ben Simmons. Somebody that the Nets have been hoping to regain even a decent form. Forget the All-Star one, though I guess you really only have to worry about somebody regaining a former form if they're on your team. But first, Underdog has this fantastic way to play daily fantasy going on right now called streaks. I regret to admit that my fantasy football team right now is currently 0-3, but on this streak, I'm 2-0. Which means that I'm a step closer to turning my $1 into $1,000. To start your streak off, all you have to do is nail a basic 2-pick where you decide if your players will have more or less than their designated projections. Once you do that, hit 9 more picks in a row to 1,000 times your money. Now you can also pull out and collect less if that's what you want to do. But with my eyes on that $1,000, I'm going to attempt to continue my streak with Mike Evans catching more than 4.5 passes this Sunday. Now guys, use my code COOP, because with code COOP, you can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash along with the free pick. And it's also a great way to support the channel. Thank you, Underdog, for the sponsor. I know that Brooklyn Nets fans can't believe the way that things have shaken out for this franchise over the past few years. This franchise assembled what was supposed to be one of the most overpowered super teams that we had ever seen, only for that super team to fail. But in typical Nets fashion, this super team couldn't just fail. It had to fail in the most heartbreaking and dramatic way possible. You never want your team to be on the wrong side of an all-time what if. And that's what happened with the Nets. They're on the wrong side. With no Kyrie thanks to Giannis inadvertently undercutting his putback attempt, and with a hobbled Harden who couldn't throw a rock in the ocean, Kevin Durant would do almost the impossible, leading his team to a victory against a huge and formidable Giannis-led Bucks team. If the Nets have decent health, or Kevin Durant is able to keep his size 18 shoes off of the line here, we could be looking at a completely different story than we are now. Perhaps the current Nets aren't viewed as a failed super team that has now been tasked with rehabilitating Ben Simmons' value, and instead viewed as former champions of the NBA. So that failed Big Three in Brooklyn left such a bad taste in owner Joe Tsai's mouth that it'd come out that this man would prefer a team that plays hard, that he's proud to own, which wins around 40 games and fights for the play-in tournament, over a team that has way more talent that he's not proud to be a part of. And after the way that everything went down in Brooklyn, I don't blame this man one bit. The bad news for Joe Tsai is that the Nets didn't come close to winning those 40 games that he wanted to win last season, only winning 32. And also that the whole Ben Simmons thing has just been a lingering pain for this franchise. When the Brooklyn Nets lost James Harden and traded for Ben Simmons, the whole situation seemed too good to be true for a Ben Simmons who hated shooting the basketball. In going to Brooklyn, Ben would get the opportunity to play with two of the best scorers in NBA history in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. All Ben would have to do is facilitate and defend, two things that he's shown to be able to do at a high level in the past. but even Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant wouldn't be able to get the best out of Ben.
Nets out and running. Irving. Simmons didn't even look at the basket, but that's a good decision to get it to KD, who gets it to fall.
Ben would get the assist here, but it's comedy that you can hear his teammate at the time, Kyrie Irving, begging Ben Simmons to shoot the ball. Okay, now earlier I told you guys the bad news. So now for the good news. The good news for Joe Tsai is that while Kevin Durant is on another super team in Phoenix and Kyrie Irving is living his best life in Dallas, as I mentioned earlier, the Nets now have control over their 2025 pick. And let me tell you guys, that 2025 NBA draft is looking loaded. It's one that scouts are raving about. There's something very calming about just being able to properly start your rebuild. So congrats, Nets fans. And now, Ben Simmons is fully healthy, something that has unfortunately become a rarity in Brooklyn. Remember that this man was shut down early last season after only appearing in 15 games due to a nerve impingement in his lower back. To quote Chris Haynes, Ben Simmons has now been cleared to begin training camp with the Nets October 1st with no restrictions. And now, stop me if you've heard this one before, but he's also been looking amazing this offseason, even knocking down jump shots, which I think we're all very inclined to just shrug off another offseason of Ben Simmons getting better and knocking down jump shots. But famous trainer Chris Brickley, who is very reputable and known for their shooting work, says that Ben Simmons is healthy, moving very well, and that he is now better than in his all-star seasons. He continued saying that he's never co-signed a player that didn't prove it when their season started, and that we just have to trust him on this one. It feels like this Ben Simmons stuff happens every single year. Every year we see these workouts or open run videos where the man is looking like a monster and knocking down shots. And then when the season actually starts, everybody is wondering where that monster from those open runs went. But as we all know, talent has never been a problem for Ben Simmons. The former #1 overall pick's major obstacles have been his health and also his mindset. With Ben Simmons entering a contract year with good health on a Nets team that will literally be playing for Cooper Flag, he has a fantastic chance to recoup at least a fraction of his value in yet another low-pressure situation, which is something that I'm sure that Joe Tsai would love, but either way, he's an expiring $40 million. Ben Simmons is an expiring $40 million, guys. That sounds so crazy to say, but shout out to Joe Tsai because the Nets' Ben Simmons problem is almost officially over. Which brings us to the next question. Where will Ben Simmons be playing basketball next, and what will his next contract potentially look like? I'm personally inclined to believe that Ben Simmons' next contract will be close to the minimum that he can receive, if not actually being the minimum that he can receive. Now, for where he may potentially be playing his next basketball. The odds from months ago had him playing his next basketball in Minnesota if he were to be bought out, with the Warriors being next on that list. Ben Simmons playing alongside Steph Curry emulating that Draymond role has always seemed like a dream, but it's more clear now than ever that these two are way too different for something like that to ever happen. But if I were the Warriors and a mentally rejuvenated Ben Simmons wanted to come to town for the minimum, as I say, you can definitely do worse. At one point in time, Ben Simmons actually preferred the Warriors over other potential landing spots, and I don't blame him at all. Who wouldn't want to play with a selfless, unproblematic legend like Steph that just makes their teammates better? Guys, where could you see Ben Simmons playing his next basketball? Where do you think that this man would be a good fit? Anyways, guys, there's some more going on in the basketball world that I have to cover. Clicking the video on the screen right now and using code COOP for Underdog are great ways to support this channel. I'm GetLikeCoop, bringing you guys the scoop until our next upload.